Okay. All right, Max. Let's fire this bad boy up. Okay, I'm going to start with a slide from one of my favorite movies ever. And if anybody's watching this show and is of the same mind as me, you know that Secondhand Lions is one of the coolest movies ever made. Okay. Uh, I won't spoil the plot, but basically, it's, if you watch it, you'll understand what I mean. It speaks a lot about uh, how people change as they get older, and they tend to focus on the meaning of life, the prize, what's life really about. And if people watching this video want to watch a really good movie tonight, Friday night, man, let's go get a beer and watch Secondhand Lions. You'll understand what I mean. Got to go out with your boots on. Okay. I'll not spoil it, but let's go on. This story is kind of a secondhand lion story, in my view, and I'll show you why. Okay, we're going to talk about BCM resources. First of all, the symbol for this is B.V. Okay, I don't want people getting confused with Bear Creek Mining or anything else. BCM is a different company. It is a company that has a handful of projects, one of which I think could be kind of cool if it pays off. Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right, I pulled this off of the TSX. I just clipped some images to show you the company and what it's about. So again, symbol B.V, not BCM, B.V. Okay, you can see the share price is all of 15 cents, I believe, right now, something like that. You can see the shares out, even with the placement they did recently, fairly tightly held. It's about 59 million shares out. Gives it a market cap of less than 10 million Canadian. Okay, so something like, I don't know, 6 or 7 million US. Okay, so peanuts. All right, what's the price here? Well, let's talk about this. This is an interesting story. Okay, now first of all, go to the next slide, Max. People. Okay, these are the secondhand lion guys. All right, these are all geologists, most of whom are, we'll say, in retirement years and have focused on what they want to do in retirement. Okay, like I said, when you get older, you know what you want to do, what life's all about. Okay, Sergei Dyatlov at the top. He is one of these guys that finds stuff. Okay, throughout his career, he has been associated with many discoveries. You can see some of them down there. I'm going to point out one in particular. Oyu Tolgoi. Wow, what the heck is that? That's one of the largest copper gold porphyry systems on this planet. It was discovered at Friedland, of course. It was discovered about 20 odd years ago. About 20 years ago, in Mongolia, and it is now one of the biggest single mines for copper. Well, and it also produces considerable gold. Right, it's a huge deposit. I mean, Sergey was directly involved with that. Sergey's in retirement now, but he seeing his name here is like, yep, okay, if somebody this smart's in, I'm going to take an interest. This is an interesting story. Now, Rick Redfern, also smart guy. He actually worked at Homestake years ago. I didn't work directly with him, but he was out of the same office, I believe, here in Denver. And then Vic Chevelon, I worked underneath Vic Chevelon years and years ago. Okay, so he was at Homestake, and he was my boss for a period. Again, very, very savvy guys. Lindsay Bottomer, I haven't worked with, but again, very sharp, very broad experience. A lot of guys who are basically looking around at what they want to spend their time on in retirement, and they picked this. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, we're going to talk about the deposit type. What is the prize here? Well, we're looking at porphyry systems. What the heck is a porphyry? A porphyry is basically a body of magma that came up from somewhere deep in the ground, somewhere lower in the crust. And as it came up and it started to cool and solidify, a lot of the stuff that it was carrying, the metals and fluids and so forth, they have to go somewhere. Okay, as your little mineral grains form, things like copper and gold and moly and or molybdenum and silver and other things, they have to go somewhere. and they usually exit stage left with the fluids that come off of the magma. Believe it or not, magma, even though it's very, very hot, often has a bit of water dissolved in it and a bit of other things dissolved in it. And these things make a wonderful delivery system, we'll call it, for a large volume of metal up into the shallow environment in the crust. So as they come up, guess what? Above them, usually there's a volcano. Okay, this magma was probably a feeder for a volcano at surface. All right, so it's not uncommon that these porphyry systems form immediately below a volcano. The depth at which they form might be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kilometers, something like that. So they're not too far down in geologic talk. That's pretty shallow. You can see here in red that kind of sheath-like or knife blade shaped thing. That is the intrusion. They usually have kind of a pinnacle shape to them, and as the fluids leave them, they end up forming a shell around them of metal. I mean, basically the deposit. All right, so that dark red is showing the mineralized envelope around this porphyry. Okay, now the fluids can also escape if there's rocks adjacent to the porphyry that are receptive, like are chemically reactive with fluids. You can get things forming like what we call skarns, which are basically deposits that form usually in limestone or something like this from the fluids that are escaping the porphyry as it crystallizes. And again, metal can deposit with those skarns. You can get skarns way out. In this image, you can see, stepwise, you can see skarns, and then there's things we call carbonate replacement. I have talked about this like Monarcha a few months ago. You get basically massive, say, zinc and lead and stuff like this replacing limestone. And then still further out, you can get sediment-hosted gold systems. They're somewhat like Carlin deposits. They usually have gold, arsenic, antimony, mercury, things like that. Again, they're hosted by limestone. So this is kind of a complete, very, very stylized picture of what these systems look like. Now, I've drawn a pink circle around the porphyry because that is really the main prize here, okay? But if you go to the next slide, there is good evidence, like around this region they're exploring. There are deposits, skarn deposits, replacement deposits, even gold deposits in the general neighborhood of this place that they're prospecting that say, hey, there's a porphyry nearby. So I see those as providing evidence that these guys might be onto a porphyry. Now let's go to the next slide. Okay, so where are we? We're in Utah. You can see a map here, southern or central Utah. Salt Lake, the Great Salt Lake, is up there in the blue. The city of Salt Lake is just off to the lower right from that. And then you can see up at the top there, there's a bright orange label that says Bingham. What is Bingham? Bingham Canyon is a massive porphyry deposit, one of the top 10 porphyry copper systems on planet Earth, and has been mined for many, many decades. It's actually been mined since the, I believe, 1860s. There was mining. All right. Now, it's been mined as an open pit in more recent time over the past few decades, but it's an absolutely huge, monstrous, world-class deposit. You can see BCM's Thompson Knolls project down in the lower left. Okay, it is in the same general region as Bingham, but there are other deposits kicking around here of significance. You can see some of them labeled here. Now, one of the ones that's not on this image, but is actually just off to the left in Nevada, so that line, that vertical line, is a boundary between Utah and Nevada. There's another porphyry over there called Robinson. Okay, it's not anywhere near the size of Bingham, but it is a significant porphyry. Anyway, this is definitely, elephant country for big copper porphyry systems. And these guys have an idea of where one might be. So let's go to the next slide. This image shows the Bingham Pit. Okay, we're looking, it's an aerial shot looking down into this absolutely massive pit. I think east would be, or northeast is kind of off in the distance there, because I think that's Salt Lake where it's all smoggy. Salt Lake is almost always smoggy, so that's probably it. Anyway, this pit is absolutely ginormous. It is, I think, about 3 kilometers across, which would be not quite, but just under 2 miles. And the porphyry, that magma body, is basically down in the center of that pit. Okay, and this thing has been mined for decades. It has decades of reserves left. It's absolutely huge. This is our prize. Okay, let's see what these guys have. Let's go to the next slide. This is what these guys have. Okay, wow, wow. Big shot of absolutely nothing. This is a valley in southwest Utah where these guys think they might have one of those big deposits. Now, a lot of people ask me, how on earth do you come up with the idea of where you should drill? How do you know what you should, what are you looking for? And there's a lot of different data. We're going to talk about the data these guys have of why they think somewhere underneath that pickup truck that's way out there in the middle of nowhere, there might be one of those giant porphyry deposits. The other thing I point out, can you think of too many places better for a mine? If Joe Biden wants green metals, buddy, you know what? This is a good place to build a mine. I think Joe Biden might want to hire a geologist as an advisor so that he might realize that to have all the metal necessary to undertake his policy, you'd have to mine half the planet. Okay, little out of whack, but well, that's another discussion. Anyway, go on to the next slide. All right, data. Let's see what high-level data they have that says, hey, there might be something out here. Okay, that image on the left-hand side, that's magnetics. All right, what that means is red, that's magnetic rock. Somewhere underneath the ground, there's magnetic rock. Well, guess what? The magmas that make these porphyry deposits often have a little bit of magnetite in them. And it really sticks out, especially when there's a bunch of limestones and stuff that have absolutely no magnetite in them surrounding it. All right, so there's definitely something lurking down there. Now, bear in mind, that place is covered. It's flat as a pancake, and you don't see bugger all there. I mean, absolutely stuff all, right? But, this geophysical expression is there. Now, what's that thing on the right-hand side? That's gravity data. You can actually go around and collect data from surface about the density of rock below your feet. Everybody thinks, the gravity's the same across the earth. No, there's slight changes from place to place, depending on what types of rocks are immediately below your feet. Where there's less dense rock, you get gravity lows, all right? And in this case, you can see there's kind of an embayment of blue and green that kind of protrudes through that northern area about where that magnetic feature is. What the heck is that? Well, think about this for a minute, guys. If a magma comes up through the crust, it's going to have to be less dense than the stuff around it. Okay, for it to go up, like a balloon, it has to rise. It's got to be less dense than the stuff around it. All right, that means in terms of gravity, it would be expressed as a gravity low. So what do we see? We see a magnetic feature with the gravity low lurking out there underneath that big flat area where that pickup was parked. Now notice there's also a little pink dot. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Let's go to the next slide. Now, one of the things about the Great Basin, this is the area between, say, Salt Lake and Reno. Okay, if you've ever driven across this area, you go up over a mountain range and then down across a big flat valley and then up over a mountain range, repeat. You go over like 40 or 50 mountain ranges between Salt Lake and Reno. This is why, okay, the ground is literally just pulled apart and forms these break apart fault basins. All right, and these have displaced rock hugely over the fault surface. There might be upwards of a mile of displacement or more. Okay, so you have to appreciate this when you're exploring out in the Great Basin. Go to the next slide. So this shows you their property. The Thompson Knolls property is the brown outline that you see there, and then you can see that dark orange blob they have. That is their porphyry target in the subsurface, where they project based on the data they have. There's something lurking underneath that flat area. Okay, now there's a cross-section line drawn. I drew it pink, and now at the bottom, what we're looking at is effectively the cross-section. Now, notice over on the right-hand side of the cross-section where it says Silver Dream and Rogue Canyon and stuff. There are actually, like I said, skarns and replacement deposits popping up in the mountain ranges around this area. And people have thought, that's interesting. Usually when you see those kind of things, there's a porphyry around somewhere. Where on earth is it? Well, guess what? It's, these guys think it's hiding underneath the ground over there on the left-hand side. So they've kind of drawn a schematic, blob representing the porphyry, and they want to go find the elephant hiding underneath that flat area. All right, let's go to the next slide. This is an incredibly complicated diagram, but it's basically their working model of what's going on here. So the green line, they've gone around and looked for these replacement deposits and so forth, and they said, okay, all of them fall within this circle. Then they've looked at the alteration in the rock, how the rock has been affected by fluids, and they say, there's this kind of a halo, they've drawn that in blue of where the fluids probably came out from this porphyry. So it's kind of helping them focus. Okay, now right there in the middle, you can see that gravity low. Okay, and I've drawn a red arrow there. Why have I put a red arrow there? Because back in 2018, these guys, went out and literally just poked a hole down to see what was going on. Okay, it didn't go that far. It was like 300 and something meters, like 320 meters or something. They hit a fault, and the drill, the drill company couldn't advance the hole anymore, and they ran out of money basically. So they had to kind of throw their hands up and sit idle for a while. But I love the story, so we're going to drill a hole. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, so what did that hole hit? Well, if you can see here, look on the left-hand side there, it's basically a trace, a schematic trace. The colors are just showing you what they were seeing. Okay, but the important takeaway here is down at the bottom of that hole. Again, it was about 320 years. Oh no, it says there 340 meter hole. The lower few tens of meters had highly anomalous copper, not quite ore grade, but definitely jumping up. Okay. More importantly, they hit porphyry. All right, so let's go to the next slide. Here's what they had right at the bottom of that hole. You can see the numbers here. We're in the 290-ish meters. Okay, so the porphyry, what is a porphyry? It's an intrusive rock where you see little crystals. See up in the upper left there, there's little white crystals? That is your porphyry. All right, interesting. Okay, now the porphyry is altered. Fluids have attacked it. Basically, the fluids that were coming out of it have, self-destructed the porphyry, and they've created what we call potassic alteration. The bleaching and orangeness and stuff that you see is where this thing has been potassically altered. The fluids were rich in potassium feldspar, and they basically cook or alter the minerals that were pre-existent here. Now, the other thing I'll draw your attention to where the green stars are, there's little veins, quartz veins starting to pop up. And that's important. The quartz veins are basically the little vestiges of where the fluid left mineral in the rock. Now, all of this is oxidized, which is interesting. Could mean that as they go down, they have what we call a supergene blanket, but very good evidence they're getting into something here. Let's go to the next slide. I notice our time is running fast, so I got to talk fast, guys. Okay, so hole 18, you can see up in the top of that image, I put a little white star where hole 18 ended. That's where that hole ended. But based on what they were seeing at the bottom of that hole, they think, looks like we were just getting into the porphyry. So they basically built a three-dimensional model here showing where the potassic shell and where that porphyry, that mothership should be. All right, so that's their target. And basically, they didn't quite get down to target. So we have put money in alongside others, and they're going to go out and start drilling holes. They got permits to drill deep holes. All right, in the next probably 2 or 3 weeks, and they have a drill. In fact, that's one of the first questions I ask people anymore is, can you get a drill? Because if they can't get a drill, no point in funding them, or they can't do the work. But these guys were able to secure a drill. So I X'd out the 2020. No, we're funding it, and they're going to start drilling sometime in May. Touch wood. All right. This is cool. This is really simple concept, guys. If they go down, if they drill another hole, more or less like 18-1, and they get a bit deeper and they hit what I hope is there, this could be a home run. Very simple. All right. Let's go to the next slide. This is a promotional slide. I'm not going to take a huge amount of time because I'm running low on time, but it basically shows the scale of Bingham compared to their Thompson Knolls project here. Now, it's a little confusing, I'm going to say. Okay, so all of those squiggly lines that you see there are the ones that were on that image I showed a few slides back. And this is superimposed over a photographic image of the Bingham system with a few other annotations there. Okay, it's very confusing in some respects, but if you got time, and I'm not going to take a huge amount of time here, go to their website, look at this image, and go, and it'll start to click. Okay, the point is that the system at Thompson Knolls shows similar magnitude in terms of its size, aerial footprint to the Bingham system. So touch wood, these guys might be onto something. Wouldn't it be cool if Sergey found the next Bingham Canyon in retirement? Again, secondhand lions. Watch it. You'll see what I mean. All right, let's